May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. Hello everyone, welcome to UPSC Talks from Lukman IAS. My name is Jahidul, and in this episode today, we are going to understand how to choose the right optional subject for UPSC Civil Services Examination. And to understand this, we are going to understand multiple viewpoints, multiple important aspects that will help you to select the right optional subjects for the examination. But before we proceed, let us understand what do we mean by optional subject and what is an optional subject. So basically, when you are preparing for the UPSC Civil Services Examination, as you know that this examination is a 3-stage exam process. So initially they conduct the UPSC prelims examination, and all those candidates who qualify the prelims examination, they write the mains examination. And those candidates who qualify the mains examination, they appear in the interview. So these are the 3 stages associated with this examination. But when we talk about the number of papers that you have to write in the mains exam, so they are 9. Okay, so basically there will be 1 essay paper and there are 4 GS papers. So 5 papers in all, and paper number 6 and 7 are the optional papers. Okay, so in the UPSC Civil Services Examination, you have to select one optional subject. Okay, it can be any subject of your choice, and irrespective of the fact whether you have studied this subject in your graduation or post-graduation or in your schooling, you are given a choice to select an optional subject. So there is no restriction that which subject you can choose, which subject you cannot choose. Any subject from the list of optionals that UPSC provides, right? You can choose any subject from that list. Okay, and once you have chosen that particular optional subject, you are expected to read that optional subject thoroughly to cover the entire syllabus so that you can write examination on that optional subject. So generally for one optional subject, there will be 2 papers in UPSC. One paper covers almost half of the syllabus and the other paper covers the other half of the syllabus of that optional subject. So when we talk about the nature of the optional subjects that UPSC provides, so UPSC gives you a range of optional subjects to choose from. So these optional subjects may be from humanities like history, geography, sociology, anthropology, etc., and public administration, political science and international relations. Many, let's say humanities related subjects are there. And at the same time, there are many science-based subjects. For example, you can choose electrical engineering, chemistry, or you can choose, let's say, mathematics as an optional subject. So very deep technical subjects are also there. Apart from this, there are language-related subjects. So there are many papers. I mean, like you can choose literature of any language as your optional subject. So you can read any optional subject that interests you. However, once you have made the decision, it is expected that you are going to read that optional subject thoroughly, you are going to understand various concepts related to that, and you are going to write answers to the optional subject in the UPSC examination. So when it comes to making decision to select the optional subject, so you should make a careful decision before choosing the optional subject. Why? Because this optional requires your effort, it requires your time. And since you are preparing for a competitive examination, you are expected to write answers also on that optional subject. Alright, so today we are going to discuss what parameters you should consider before selecting the optional subject for yourself. Okay, so we are going to discuss about those parameters, and we are going to discuss about factors that are part of that parameter. So the number 1 parameter that you need to consider before selecting an optional subject is doing a self-assessment. You need to assess yourself whether you are fit for that optional subject or not. What do we mean by this? Basically, you need to see whether you have interest and passion to learn that subject. Okay, any subject where you have an interest to learn, so you will naturally tend to learn that subject. You will try to understand its concepts, you will try to write answers on that subject. Okay, so interest and passion is the most important factor. Apart from this, you also need to understand your strengths and weaknesses before selecting an optional subject. Let me give you an example related to this. For example, let's consider there is a student who has done his BSc in mathematics, he has done MSc in mathematics. So it is expected that he has a natural inclination to learn more about mathematics. Okay, he has understood that subject. So he is a person who is a bit analytical, right, and who is, let's say, good enough in studying deep technical topics and those topics that require, let's say, mental understanding. So like here, mathematics, when we talk about mathematics, you don't have to read current affairs related to that subject. You just keep on reading like whatever theorems are there, whatever concepts are there, so that will be sufficient. Okay, so for that student, mathematics would be a suitable optional. So it is his strengths. And if that student chooses an optional subject which requires more understanding of the current affairs, let's consider if he chooses PSIR, right? So PSIR, like the entire second paper, international relations, okay, is kind of, let's say, based on current affairs. So that student may not be suitable for this. And if you have an interest in reading current affairs, if you have an interest of staying updated with what's happening in the world, choose a subject that is more relevant with the current affairs. For example, you can choose public administration. Lot of articles come every day in the newspaper that you can relate with public administration, because in public administration you read Indian polity also, you read constitutions as well, you read governance, and you read, let's say, international relations, you read how administration functions at different levels, right? So that you can choose. So strength and weakness analysis must be done. And in the later part of today's video, I'm going to share you SWOT analysis. We will understand what do we mean by SWOT analysis. Okay, SWOT means strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So how can you analyze that to select the right optional subject? Okay, so it is important that you look forward to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses. Then you also need to understand your educational background. Okay, so like if, let's consider you have studied public administration in your master's, maybe you have more inclination towards selecting that optional subject, you can choose it. If you have studied PSIR, you can choose it. So educational background also plays a role in selecting the optional subject. But the thing is, if you have done graduation from a stream that you did not like much, that you were not, let's say, emotionally and mentally, let's say, invested into, so you will not be putting much effort, right, to study that subject further. So it is advisable that irrespective of the fact that you have had an educational background in a particular field, so it is most likely that you are not going to choose that as an optional subject. Okay, this is the thing. Apart from this, the second important parameter is subject evaluation. Okay, so you need to evaluate the subject that you are going to choose, right? Initially, let's consider you have a list of optional subject, the UPSC list, and then from here you have shortlisted 4 or 5 optional subjects. But what you need to do, you need to do the subject evaluation of each subject before finalizing which optional subject you are going to choose. So how you can do it? You can do a syllabus analysis of each of these papers. For example, you have chosen PSIR, right? Do a syllabus analysis of this paper and see whether it interests you. For example, you have chosen public administration. You can select public administration also. Go through the syllabus of public administration, and after reading the syllabus, if you feel that this is interesting and you are able to understand the syllabus, I mean the points that are mentioned in the syllabus, maybe you can choose public administration as an optional subject for yourself. Okay, so syllabus analysis of an optional subject before choosing the optional is important. Then you also need to see a factor which is overlap with the GS papers. This is a very, very important factor. Okay, whichever optional you are choosing, if that optional subject has an overlap with the general studies paper, so whatever effort you are putting to cover that optional subject, that effort is also going to cover the GS paper. So you will be rewarded more. Okay, I will give you an example. Let's consider you have chosen public administration as an optional subject. So if we talk about the syllabus of public administration, within the syllabus of public administration, ethics is there. So if you are reading public administration, you are covering most of the portion of the ethics paper, which is part of GS paper 4 in the mains exam. And in the public administration itself, you study deeply about Indian polity, right? Constitution, governance, social justice, etc. So most of your GS paper 2 of the mains exam will be covered if you are covering the optional subject public administration. And public administration has many philosophical topics which has relevance with the essay paper also. So the thing is, choosing an optional subject that has huge overlap with the GS paper rewards you more than choosing an optional subject that has less overlap. I'll give you an example of a subject that has very less overlap with GS. For example, if you choose mathematics, no overlap with general studies. If you choose chemistry or chemical engineering, let's consider if you choose electrical engineering, no overlap. So there can be some deep technical topics, but these technical topics do not have overlap with GS papers. So if you are putting so much effort in covering those optional subjects, it is not rewarding you in the GS paper. So overlap with the subject is very important consideration. Apart from this, as I discussed, next important thing is availability of resources. What do we mean by availability of resources? Generally, we have interacted with huge number of students in our institute also, and let's say we got to know after interacting with them that many of these students come from technical education background. But even after coming from technical backgrounds, they do not select their subject of study as the optional subject. Let's consider someone has done electrical engineering, but he has not chosen electrical engineering as an optional subject. So there can be exceptional students who choose their own field as an optional subject for UPSC also, and they get good ranks. There are history also related to that. But the thing is, majority of the students do not do it. They choose an optional subject which they feel they have an interest in, which they are able to understand, and let's say its resource material is also available. So availability of resources means that whether sufficient number of books are available on that optional subject, whether notes are available, whether let's say coaching is available for that optional subject or not. So if resources are available for an optional subject, so choose that optional subject, because you may choose an odd optional subject for which resources are not available, then you will be languishing for resources, because there are many optional subjects for which no notes are available, no book is available, even coachings are not available. So what is the worth in choosing that optional subject? You need to choose an optional subject for which resources are available in ample amount, so that you can refer from them, you can read it and qualify the examination. That is important. So subject evaluation is a very important factor. The next important factor is long-term utility. Okay, what do we mean by long-term utility? Whichever optional subject you have chosen now, okay, whether this optional subject has any relevance in the services that you are going to join once you become a civil servant. Does this optional subject plays role even after you become a civil servant? Okay, if that optional subject plays role, so this optional subject is going to be good for you, because there are many optional subjects that don't have any role with the service that you are going to join, that don't have any role in the, let's say, career that you are going to have. So it has, let's say, less relevance for you. An optional subject that rewards you while you are preparing for the exam and in the examination and after you qualify the exam is the best optional. There are many optional subjects, but I can give example of one optional subject, because that optional subject is taught in our institute also, which is public administration. Let me talk about how it is relevant for long term. If you are reading public administration now, this subject you're reading to understand about how the administration works in India, right? So you will be having a thorough understanding that how administration system works from the top to the bottom level in India, right? Even if you go into the service, while you are in the service, you will be having lot of knowledge how the, let's say, like administration works. You will be having thoughts and ideas of various thinkers and philosophers of that optional subject. This is equally relevant with other optionals also. There can be many other optional. For example, sociology, right? Sociology is something which is connected. PSIR is a similar subject. So like there are many optional subjects that has relevance even even after qualifying the examination. So this is important. Apart from this, if you are a person who is naturally inclined to stay updated with current events, to stay updated with current affairs, so in that case you can choose an optional subject where like current affair related materials are available immensely. Okay, so that can be beneficial for you. Apart from this, let's say what you need to do, even if you are undecided, let's consider even if you are undecided about which optional subject I should read, what you can do is, first of all, you can begin your preparation with general studies, go through general studies papers, read history, read economics, read polity, read let's say society, read let's say all the papers of GS little bit. Okay, after reading a bit about every GS paper, right, you will get an insight that which subject is more interesting for you. If you think that history is more interesting for you, choose history as an optional subject. If you think polity is more interesting to you, choose public administration or choose PSIR. So that way also you can take a decision about selecting an optional subject. Then apart from this, what you can do is like you can consult with peers and experts. Okay, you can take guidance from people in choosing the optional subject. How? Number one is, if you are preparing for an optional subject, right, if you have interacted with the topper, let's say like who has selected a particular optional subject, you can interact with that topper and get little more idea about that optional. You can seek guidance. In our institute also, at Lukman IAS, like mentors are available. Even before you choose an optional subject, you can come, visit the institute, interact with the mentor of the optional subject. They are going to share details about that optional subject, that how this option is going to be beneficial, right? So based on that informed decision, you can take a decision, final decision for yourself, right? That way it will be beneficial. You can even connect with them on a phone call. Okay, so this is the thing. You can seek mentorship, you can take guidance from previous candidates, and let's say a lot of resources are available, right, on online in the YouTube as well, to make the decision. Now let us discuss about one important factor, which is SWOT analysis. Okay, we are going to discuss about SWOT analysis. SWOT means strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Okay, so this is for your personal consideration. Now you need to understand what are your strengths. Your strengths may lie in reading current affairs a lot. So select an optional subject that has more relevance with current affairs. Your strength may lie in, let's say, like playing with numbers and all. Okay, so in that case, you can choose commerce and accountancy to be an optional subject. You can choose mathematics to be an optional subject. If your strength lies in doing analytical or analytics or comparing different things, analyzing things, you can choose public administration. You can choose, let's say, like philosophy. You can choose PSIR. Okay, so these are a little bit analytical. You need to, let's say, put a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts in writing answers, learn about different thinkers. Okay, so that way you can choose, right? So this can be a strength. And weakness, so you need to consider your weakness also. Some students have a weakness that, like, they cannot mug up the concepts. Let's say, like when we talk about mathematics, so there are students who score 100 out of 100 in mathematics in schooling. There are students who fail in mathematics. It is not the subject itself that decides, it is the person, his caliber, whether he is able to do it or not. Okay, so when we talk about mathematics, a person who is scoring highest has a ability, natural ability to understand theorems, to understand about various formulas, remember those formulas, right, and write answers related to that. But a person who is failing on these aspects will not be, let's say, like he will not be suitable to select mathematics as an optional subject. So in that case, you can select an optional subject that naturally, let's say, aligns with your own strengths, not with your weakness. Okay, this is the thing. Then opportunities, as I discussed, various optional subjects give you multiple opportunities. So reading an optional subject gives you an opportunity to learn about a new subject, learn about it, so that like it's going to help you in your career and also after you become a civil servant. For example, if you choose public administration, it's going to help you in the long career that you are going to have. If you choose sociology, so that's also going to help, because sociology also plays a very important role. You're going to learn about society in detail. Okay, PSIR is a similar subject, so you can choose any of these subjects as an optional subject. Okay, so it provides you an opportunity. Then threats, I mean, like, threats. What are threats? Threats are associated with, let's say, less availability of resources. Threats are associated with, let's say, your inability to write good answers on that optional. So there can be multiple threats. For example, if you choose an optional, any optional subject, it's not related to, I mean, like, that I'm demeaning one optional subject and promoting another. Let's consider you select chemistry as an optional subject, chemical engineering as an optional subject. Are materials available to that optional subject in ORN in Delhi? No, no materials available. If you choose maybe any language, right, literature subject, maybe its resources are available very less. So you need to understand about threats. I mean, like, what are the difficulties that you're going to face if you choose an optional subject. So these are the threats. If you do a SWOT analysis, you will be well informed that, let's say, like, which optional subject you should choose or not. Apart from this, what you can do is, like, you can create a table for yourself to compare different subjects. Let's consider now at this point of time you have 2 or 3 subjects in mind that you want to select as an optional subject, right? So how do you compare all these 3 subjects, right? So you can make a comparison table, comparison matrix. I'm going to share a, let's say, a sample table on this video. So in that comparison table, what you can do, you can have a comparison factor, then subject A, subject B, subject C, like this. What can be the parameters in the comparison factor? Number one parameter is it can be your interests, right, in that subject. Whether you have more interest in this subject, let's say out of 10, 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, how much mark will you give to optional subject A, optional subject B, optional subject C? So your interest will be important. Then overlap with GS papers, as I discussed, it is a very important factor. So how much of the optional subject is overlapping with GS? For example, public administration, huge overlap. Mathematics, no overlap. Okay, that can be a part. Then availability of resources, whether study materials are available, whether coaching notes are available, whether coaching classes are available. A lot of factors can be there. Whatever resources are needed, whether those resources are available for, I mean, like, your optional subject, and what time is required to cover that optional subject. The time period is also important. Okay, so the lesser the time it takes, the more beneficial it is for you. Okay, because, like, you will be able to do the optional subject and, let's say, stay free from that. And also, does it align with your academic background? You can have a comparison on all these subjects. Then you can do a previous year question analysis. Do a previous year question analysis and see whether you are able to understand the PYQs or not related to that optional subject. Okay, so compare those optional subject accordingly. So there can be multiple factors similar to this, right, that you can consider while choosing an optional subject. Okay, before you take a decision, it is very important that you consider multiple factors to choose your optional subject. Okay, and lastly, you cannot make progress without making decisions. So it is important that you make decisions quickly, right, to make progress in life. So that will be all from my side for the day. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. I hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you.